Kia ora and welcome along to the Mad Monday podcast live from the Export Beer Garden studio, even though podcasts can't be live because they're pre-recorded and then released at a later date. It is, of course, all brought to you by our mates at 4 and 20 Pies, the perfect at-home snack for watching rugby league. And watch some rugby league. I certainly did this weekend. So too did Ben Hurley, who is joining me from beautiful Bay of Plenty. Ben, how are you today?
Right. Listen, I was actually down very much in your neck of the woods on Saturday before the game. I was hosting, this is true, the 65th anniversary of the changing of the name from Chinese gooseberry to kiwi fruit.
Wow, is that in Te Puke?
It was in Te Puke. Well, I mean, that's not the surprising part.
Were you is that an actual thing? The seller, because I knew that it did come from China originally.
Yeah, but it grew particularly well in the sort of central Bay of Plenty, I would call that, even though it's technically the west, but I would call it more central Bay of Plenty. Yeah, and so 65 years ago, somebody went, let's just call it kiwi fruit because they were going to grow heaps of it here.
And apparently, because the green ones, they're now obviously, Ben, you'd know this, they prefer the gold and the varieties that are more immune to PSA. But the first variety, the green one, looked like a kiwi as well, and it grew really well here.
Yeah, it looked like a fuzzy bollock, but they don't. The new ones aren't so fuzzy.
No, they're not.
They've had a wax. They've
definitely had a wax. Beautiful though, sweet. It's kind of yellowy coloured. But we'll just park kiwi fruit chat there, just because one of the greatest all-time Warriors played his final game for the Warriors. Ben, if you don't mind, we just move it over to the Warriors getting a win.
If we must, sure.
Getting a win over the Sharks, 30 points to 28. What? Do we still play commentary bits? We don't? Okay, I won't pause there then. Ben, this game, I got home from a mate's 30th, sort of halfway through it. The Warriors were down. I think we had 4 points. I think the Sharks had 20-odd points. And I was just like, oh, man, don't let Shawnee J go out like this. We let them score a couple of tries right before halftime. They then scored just after halftime. And it was a nice little demoralizing chunk right in the middle after a great sort of opening 20 of us keeping them effectively scoreless. Shawnee J putting Metcalf through to open things up. Familiar pattern, start strong. They score a whole heap of tries. We get sad, except for this time we massively rallied and we came back for one of the most exciting finishes for the Wars in recent history. Yeah,
so it's nice that another team has us as their bogey team, and it must be the Sharks, right?
Yes.
Because they lose in the last minute or the last couple of minutes to us a lot of times throughout NRL history. And it's usually Sean Johnson that does it. And, yeah, it's incredible that he was able to turn it on for his last game. And when I say turn it on, he turned it on for about 15 to 20 minutes.
What?
He was good throughout the game, but then he just turned into Sean Johnson from 2023 for the last 15 minutes.
That's right. That right side really just elevated itself. I can't help but, and that's what was so crucial to Sean's success last season is it wasn't just him getting the ball and us being like, Sean, please fix things for us. It was him getting the ball in space with plenty of runners around him, plenty of options around him, and that was starting to happen last night towards the end of the game. One thing we mentioned, Manaya and I mentioned at the end of last week, was Webby's sort of reluctance to put Chance anywhere other than fullback, but then for this final game, he puts Chance at right centre, and Tane Tuapiki, who had an absolute blinder at fullback again. And Chance is just so good at, making sure the ball goes through the hands and slotting in. That right side just instantly came back to life again.
Yeah, I really like it. I like Chance in centre, and I think that's what should happen next year. And we've got a couple of options at fullback, including a Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
Well, that's honestly Chance at right centre, Roger at left centre, or maybe on the wing. And we've got to let Tuapiki play fullback, in my opinion, because he's almost like Keanu Kenny for the Titans. He's like a small, defensively he's pretty plucky, but he can get smoked by someone massive. But he's so small and electric that if we've got these dynamic players that people are thinking twice about, like Metcalf, and all of a sudden you got Tuapiki with even an inch of space, he could make you pay, man. I absolutely love this kid.
Yeah, look, it was a wonderful win, and I don't want to take anything away from it because it was one hell of a game to watch. But it was frustrating that it did just seem like a game from last season where, backs against the wall, and the Warriors come up with a clutch play and ice a game, which is just the thing that's been missing all year. Just so many, 2 and 4 point losses all year, and this week it didn't happen.
I know, right? If we could flip the switch on all those like close games we lost within about 6 points, we'd be in a very different position on the table. Look, a lot of people. I got to say, it was probably Dallin Watene-Zelezniak when we talk about the 2023 season. He had just an absolute blinder, set the club record for tries scored. This season, he hasn't been that level, and it hasn't just been his fault, but his form hasn't been to that high standard. I would actually say, even though he scored a buttload of tries, in general, like his running the ball back, his contesting and stuff, I'd say Dallin saved almost his best game of the season until the very last game.
Well, yeah, another key component of what made last year successful was him scoring in the corner, and he did it 3 times in this game.
Just being, and like he could have even had 4. Like he was chasing hard for a great grubber from Sean Johnson early on in the game as well. So it's just tenacity and bringing the ball out of our own end as well. I think Dallin, he really stepped things up. I loved Ali Leotoa, had one of the most exciting runs I've seen in a long time, bringing it out of our own half as well. Smoking Nico Hines, putting him on his back and then running and bumping off a few more dudes, eventually getting rid of Will Kennedy as well. I think to be honest, I think he will be in left centre next season.
Yeah, well, there's Adam Pompey as well, and we do need a kicker, remember.
But Leotoa can kick. Sorry, not Leotoa. Tane Tuapiki can kick. He's slotted.
Oh, yeah, true.
He's a really good kicker. Like, I reckon he's pretty clutch too.
Okay, well, if you put your chips on Tuapiki, I like it.
I'm all in.
Bold.
I'm a big fan of Tuapiki, and I'm probably going to crowbar my name into his next season when he's leading the Warriors in tries.
You can't be Adam Whānau-Kizi when he doesn't play for the Wars anymore, surely.
Well, that's the thing. He's going to be leaving, so I'll have to crowbar my name into someone else's. A lot to like, obviously, at the end of this game. Sean Johnson, just every time anything happened, whether it was good or it was bad, he had a giant grin on his face. And I think one of the keys to him actually playing so well in that final sort of 20 minutes was he was actually like, this is my last game. I'm just going to have fun, and everything's fun. We're playing a game. And it almost led to the team playing a far more, I don't know, laid back but fun style of footy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about the Stonka of the round in a minute. It had a very similar feel to that. Not quite as dramatic, and it was a successful comeback as opposed to that one. But yeah, both those games, it just looked like touch footy towards the end.
It did. Especially the Stonkas, over 80 points scored. It was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. One of the things so Sean's final pass, right? Throws that massive pass, skips Niukore, throws it right out to the wing. Dallin steps in, then scores right on the buzzer. Very exciting. I swear that's the first time he's thrown that pass all season. Why the hell haven't we been doing that more often?
Actually, that's another player who I thought had the best game of the season was Marata Niukore. He's had a quiet year. It hasn't been terrible. It just hasn't been great. And I thought he had a real staunch game.
Well, that's the thing. He's having a staunch game, and he's there for that short ball that Sean Johnson loves doing. And he goes, I'm going to skip, throw a Harbour Bridge right out to Dallin, and now he's going to retire just as he's gone, I've actually got this in my arsenal. We could be doing this more often if you guys want it. Right, so I was a bit frustrated by that. You're right, Niukore had a great game. He went off for an HAA, clearly got knocked out, but he managed to bribe his way back onto the field, which was great. Another thing I'm a bit sad about is seeing how cool that the dynamic between Sean Johnson and Luke Metcalf, with Metcalf's running game on the left. He's got a great passing game, skip pass out to Marcelo to score a try, very exciting. I just wish that both of them hadn't been so injury plagued. That could have been just such a dynamic halves pairing for 2 seasons now.
Yeah, a really good point, actually, because as much as I love Tamari Martin, and, let's be fair, he probably had a better game a year at 7 than SJ did.
Yeah.
But him and SJ just didn't seem to gel as a halves pairing, so they had to split them up. And it was so nice to see him and Metcalf together. That first Waz try, the lovely little inside ball to Luke Metcalf, and he's got some gas.
He's super fast, man. His support play is excellent. I love how dangerous he is going to be next year out on the left side. It's just going to be about who we've got at halfback to pair with him. Whether
Well, Mighty, right?
to Mighty, or
Sure.
do we give the keys to 7-year-old Jet Cleary? I mean, like I've been saying it on the Thursday pod for a while now. Just give him the keys, man. Like these young players are stepping up. They aren't afraid. They are gutsy, and we need a half. His last name's Cleary. What more do I need? I don't want to see his CV. I just need to see his last name on paper.
You're very focused on young players coming through, Chris. There's some great experienced heads that need to play the proper positions that they're meant to play.
I think it's been a whole season of we're like holding the experienced heads and letting them hold their positions, and we've just been losing, and it's not their fault at all. But I think I'm just like, I need to see these young people, and every time a young player comes through, they always have a blinder for us. Like Zion Mo, who comes on and smashes people and runs it off the back fence and things like that. And Tain Tuapiki, for example, was it Roach, our hooker, that came on for 1 or 2 games and was excellent. Like these young guys are so talented.
Leka Halasima.
Exactly. Dimitri Sifikula, when he had a shocker, but he also had a couple of really good games for us.
Yeah, Jacob
Laban. Oh yeah. See these guys.
See, what's happened to him? He just went. They didn't give him another run. I thought he had 2 great games.
He was the guy that got punched in the face a couple of weeks ago from old mate from the Raiders.
That's right.
And then he's kind of just been quiet. Horsburgh, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's got facial issues. I don't think so. Maybe he's just, yeah. I don't know.
That sounds like someone spoiling for a fight. Have you got facial issues, bro?
And if someone does, it's definitely Corey Horsburgh. Metcalf snapped off a droppy late in the game. A 2-point attempt. He's got a great kick on him, so that's good to keep in mind because we need a clutch player. We've been giving it to CHT, Shino Harris-Tavita, and he's just not that clutch guy. He's a great player, solid defensively, but he just can't seal those clutch moments. I reckon Metcalf's the guy, and as mentioned earlier by me, Tain Tuapiki is also gutsy enough to, one of those two being our drop goal kickers moving forward, I think would be smart.
Have you heard my plan for CHT, by the way?
Oh, no. What was this?
I think he needs to put on 10 kgs of muscle and play a ball-playing 13 because he's such a good defensive player, and I reckon he could go into the back row and if he bulked up a bit.
That's a great shout, actually, like a Dylan Walker type role because he loves going to the dark places.
So do we lose Walker, or is he staying?
He's going. Well, there was rumours around him leaving because we haven't re-signed him for next year, and he was part of the crew of people who are leaving, but it hasn't been announced where he's going yet, I don't think.
And same with Jazz. We don't know where he's going either, do we?
Not yet.
We haven't talked about Jazz, by the way. Jazz had a great game.
Yeah. It was nice for him to finish on a high as well as Sean Johnson's last game ever, but also, let's not forget Jazz Tavanga, who's just been at the club for over a decade through various teams and come up through the ranks. I am going to miss him. Like, there's things about him I'm not going to miss, but you can't deny the fact that he's always come off the bench and really added some spark for us.
Well, ironically, he's been much more disciplined this year. So that was the thing that always got in the way. But he's been way better this year.
Yeah, but it's too late. Like, it's when you're in trouble, you've got detention at lunchtime, and you're trying to be a good boy now to make up for it. It's like, unfortunately, it's just,
doing all your homework for the first time ever of the year, and it's parent-teacher night.
Exactly. So you got to do it for the whole year. A couple of... Look, let me know what you think about this. For some reason, right, Sean Johnson last season, pretty much the Dally M. This season, injury issues, plaguing him the whole season, Warriors not clicking. Something in my brain is saying Sean Johnson isn't done playing NRL yet.
What?
Isn't that weird? Do you get that vibe?
Like, what would he do?
Stacey Jones, did he or did he not return to the Warriors?
Yeah, horribly.
Yeah,
look,
100%.
This is the way he needs to go out. If he takes a short-term 1-year contract at the Titans or something like that, I will absolutely lose my shit.
But I could just see, like, next season, right? Picture this. We rebuild. Things are looking really great. He spends that year, like, just chilling, recovering, doing podcasts that aren't as good as this one. And then a year later, he goes, you know what, stuff it. They could really use me to come back. Because he won't, how old was Sean Johnson? He won't be that old. Let me just Google here.
34?
34. Shit, is he 34? He's 33. Yeah, so flag that. It's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. Kieran Foran's having quite a good year, by the way, and he's in his early 40s.
Well, exactly. He's got some of the best ball playing in the entire competition still. Old Fozza. So I mean, something that tells me that how good he was last year, the injury niggles this year. If he spends a year like getting into great shape and the Warriors really like look like they're going to do something tells me he might come back. I don't know why. Like. Not straight into the starting side, but just something, I don't know what it is. It's just a little hunch. And before we move on, one of my favorite things about this game, obviously, Shaun Johnson, final game, Warriors winning, all that was great. Very start of the game. The whistle hasn't even gone yet. There's a big guard of honor for Cam McInnes. He's playing his 200th game. And it zooms in and it's like his adorable little children, and then it pans up to his like beautiful wife, and then it comes across to him and he's got teeth missing, head tape on, a cut over his eye already, and the game hasn't even started. I was like, yes, that's a footy player, that kid right there. And I just absolutely loved it.
And speaking of wives, shout out to Kayla Cullen, Shaun Johnson's wife, with the best crowd sign of the year, saying, I still get to play with Shaun Johnson. If you've ever met Kayla, she's a delightful person, quite funny in her own right.
Yeah, she's very, very bubbly indeed. Do you reckon she sort of stopped herself from saying, I still get to play with his Shaun Johnson?
I think there was definitely a discussion about that at home.
Yeah, she found the right spot, so she did bloody well. But huge shout out to Shaun Johnson. Thank you so much for, he's almost of that Benji Marshall mold where kids are going to be looking at highlights of his for years to come. And if you ever need to show someone the game of NRL and why it's excellent, you look up Shaun Johnson highlights and you show them and you go, this is the best game in the world. So big shout out to Shaun Johnson. Shout out to the Warriors for ending the season on a big win. We're just going to go to an ad. When we come back, though, we will take a look at the stonker of the round, which, believe it or not, was between the Eels and the Dragons. Welcome back to the Mad Monday podcast from the Export Beer Garden studio. Got a 4 and 20 pie in one hand, a pint of water in the other hand, and it's time to rip into the stonker of the round. It was the Eels getting a surprise victory over the Dragons, 44 points to 40. Ben, this was the stonker of the round, which is, the most exciting game of the round, non-Warriors, of course. However, it was also, if you lined up all the games and I had to point at one that I was going to not watch, it would have been this one.
Yeah, they're two teams that I don't necessarily click with. I know you're a bit of an Eels fan.
Yeah.
But the Eels have had a very similar season to the Warriors. I mean, even worse. But,
yes.
They've got talent across the park. They had, they were grand finalists 2 years ago.
I know, yeah.
They should really be doing a lot better than they are. But they've lost a lot of games by not a lot. They've had some wins against some pretty good teams as well, but just haven't seemed to win the easy ones.
They're annoying, the Eels, because they've been shocking all season. And like Mitch Moses hasn't been there for a large portion of the season as well. Like Jermaine Hopgood, for example, there's a few players like this who they've been lacking. Mike Acevo has been in and out of the team. But as you say, across the park, they are still, on paper, a freaking excellent team. And for some reason, they've decided to start winning games late in the season now that it doesn't actually matter, which is quite interesting. But I will put them in a group of 4 teams, and I want to see if you agree with me here. You've got the Eels, the Titans, your Titans, the Cowboys, and the Roosters are the 4th team, teams that rely on outscoring their opponents but are terrible on defense. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good assessment. My Cowboys, thank you very much, definitely did that against the Storm B team.
I know, right? Like
in this round. But we should probably recap the game. So it was 44 points to 40 in the end.
Yeah.
But with 10 minutes to go, it was 44 points to 12.
So the Dragons scored 28 points in the final 10. So 28 in 10 minutes. It was essentially, and they just started doing stuff like running it on the 5th and Ben Hunt putting in these great kicks and things like that, and just playing with absolute disregard. Tyrell Sloan actually had a really good game, and I don't like him really as a bloke.
I don't know him.
No, neither, to be fair.
As well as you, by the sound of things. But he is one of those players that looks incredible when he's running in full flight.
Yeah.
Like like Billy Slater did or someone like that. His name sounds like a female porn star. We all know that. Tyrell Sloan. Like if your missus didn't know anything about rugby league and saw Tyrell Sloan was in your history, you'd be in trouble.
You'd be in huge trouble.
No, you're right. They came alive, and I've actually never seen a game. I don't think I've ever seen a game this high scoring. 84 points. Unless it's a blowout, I've never seen that many tries in a game.
Well, how about like the Dragons, for example? Shane Flanagan they've really stepped up their defense, right? They're a bit more of a gutsy, gritty team this season. And this is a team who are in eighth position on the ladder, and we're fighting to, be back in the finals again for the first time in bloody ages. And they let in 44 points to one of the worst teams in the entire competition.
I know. So I don't know. Having watched that game, I don't know if the Dragons do make the 8, if they'll be absolutely embarrassed and blown away
100%
by
they will.
the top teams in the first week, or because of that comeback, does that mean that there's something there? There's a spark. If they can harness that.
Yeah, I always notice this, that there are teams in the top 8, right? Melbourne, Penrith. Those are probably the only two after the Roosters lost to the Raiders. There are teams in the top 8. When they play a bad team, they are going to put 40 or 50 on them. It's going to be an ass kicking. Then there are teams in the top 8 like the Sharks and the Dragons who, if they play a bottom team, you're not that confident that they are actually going to win it. They drop their level down to match whatever team they're playing, and I feel like the Dragons are like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Let's actually look at that ladder now. There is, even though the Warriors are done, there is another round.
I thought you were going to say there's a chance we can get in.
No, there is a chance. We just need about 6 teams to have massive salary cap breaches and lose all their points, like the Bulldogs did that year. And then we might sneak into the 8.
Well, because you've got the Dolphins, the Knights, the Dragons, and the Raiders are all on 28 right now.
Yes.
So they're on 28 points, and they're all vying for that 8th position. However, this weekend, you've got 2 of those teams going head-to-head, the Knights and the Dolphins. 2 of those 4 are playing one another.
Right.
So one of them is going to go to 30, and the other one's going to stay on 28, unless there's a draw. And then they're both on 29, in which case the Raiders could win and jump up, or the Dragons could win and jump up.
But the Dolphins, if there is a tie of points, the Dolphins have easily the best
points differential. That's right.
Yeah. They're positive 7, and the next best is the Knights currently at negative 48. The other 2 are miles away.
Yeah, they've all just had horrific defeats throughout the season, which is when it comes back to bite you. But if you had to pick one of those 4 sides, Dolphins, Knights, Dragons, or Raiders, to actually do damage in the postseason, who would it be?
Well, based on the other game this round that was really interesting, which was Dolphins Broncos, I'd say the Dollies.
Wayne Bennett leaving the Dolphins, comes in, has 2 great seasons punching above average and then above what we were expecting of them, and then goes to Suncorp, the Broncos, who were playing to try and keep some sort of glimmer of hope alive this year, goes there and puts 40 on them with a Dolphins side with so many injuries. It's just ridiculous. So you go Dolphins. I'd probably go Knights just because of the Kalen Ponga factor. That's the only reason. And last season, how they went on that hot run.
Yeah, but remember who ended that hot run, and it was the Warriors, and we annihilated it by 30-odd points, didn't we? I mean, I feel like if they sneak in, the same thing's going to happen this year.
Yeah, and to be honest, any of those 4 teams it's likely going to be a one and done in terms of going into the next round. They'll play a top team, they'll get knocked out, likely, but still exciting to get up there, and I wish we were in the same position. Let's just have a quick look at a few other things that happened in the NRL. Just quickly, Ben, Melbourne, they gave your Queensland Cowboys a bit of trouble with 11 of their players out, and you guys had to score, I think, 38 to 30, was it, in order to beat a Melbourne B side?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Cowboys have been running very hot and cold. They had a wonderful start to the season, and I think the only reason they're kind of still in the eight, because
Yeah.
after that, I think they won their first 5 or 6 games. And then, having a hot start like that really helps. Then you can kind of cruise along at 50-50 after that and still end up in the 8. So, look, Val Holmes is leaving the Cows at the end of this season. So maybe there's some incentive there.
Yeah. He's been a gun for them for a few years now. He's going to the Dragons, of course. Your guys' team is just, once again, it's like the Eels, like full of guns. And on any given day, they could go on a 10-game losing streak, or they could go on a 10-game blow everyone out of the water streak. It's so bizarre. But do you know what the concerning thing is? I think if the Warriors played the Cowboys this week, we would have lost as well. And that's fielding like a healthy team, whereas Melbourne gets rid of 11 of them starters.
No.
And they still, like, they're guys like Tyrone Wishart, who is a genuine superstar. You know, he's like almost the Nico Hines of a couple of years ago. This diamond they've unearthed from off the bench of the Melbourne Storm. If he was in any other team, he'd be starting and one of their best players, you know. And these guys that Bellamy brings through, they're just ridiculous. Who's
the other fullback that played while Pappenhausen was injured?
Fa'alongo.
Fa'alongo. Now, so where the hell did he come from?
Exactly.
Imagine him as a backup fullback that you have the luxury of not playing.
Well, that's the thing. He wouldn't even be there if Nico Hines was still the backup fullback. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. It's just the conveyor belt of talent through Melbourne. Another big talking point, Manly absolutely put the cleaners through the Dogs. I was actually picking the Dogs, their defence, to outmuscle Manly because they're offence focused and the Dogs are defence focused, but they did a job.
Manly might be peaking at the right time. They're starting to look like a pretty good football team, but they've got you give the news.
A huge but. Tom Trebojevic, a grade 3 AC joint injury, won't play next round, but apparently is aiming to return in week 1 of the finals. Unfortunately for Manly, so much of their offense just runs through him. Not as much as it used to, like over the last few years, because they've got so many new guns like Lehi Hopewadi and like Kula, Tommy Talau, these guys. But it still pivots around Tom Turbo and also Daly Cherry Evans. That's a huge loss, I think, going into these finals if he can't come back in time.
Yeah, I don't think Manly are a chance without him, to be honest.
100%.
He's been the difference. He came back and they started winning games. I mean,
that's right.
It's 1 + 1 = 2, really.
It really is. So, unfortunately, unless he can pull up, and you don't want to rush Tom back just because of his injury history. If he can't pull up, Manly, I'm putting a line through them as well. Huge news for the Roosters too. Not as impactful as Tommy to Manly, but Sam Walker, he's done his ACL and he is expected to miss 6 to 9 months and probably won't be back till about round 10 of next season after having a season, I'd say, second to only Jerome Hughes. He's probably been the next best halfback, the most consistent. And the Roosters are very potent and they've got a lot of talent around him. But that is huge for the Roosters going into the finals. I think that takes a big chunk out of their chances too.
So here's my real question, and I've sort of been mentioning this every time I've been on the pod, but are there really only 2 teams that can win this? Like in actuality, let's just be honest. Are there 2 teams?
I don't want to... At the start of the season, I'm going, nah, man, this thing's wide open. Halfway through the season, nah, man. As soon as the Warriors are out of contention, that's when I come to grips with reality and say, no one is beating. I think Melbourne's going to win it. I don't know.
I've been saying that for weeks. It's been really, really even, and Melbourne's been head and shoulders above really the rest of the pack, other than Penrith, you know. But even Penrith's had some weird losses, including to us.
Well, exactly. And Melbourne beat Penrith in that matchup a few weeks back. They just, they showed they could go there, not only win, but go to Penrith and win as well, which is gutsy. They also, the Roosters also have lost Brandon Smith, who's ruptured his ACL as well. So he's the same as, Sam Walker. And they also lost Victor Radley 4 to 8 weeks with a shoulder-to-shoulder direct contact mechanism. He fractured his scapula, which is his shoulder blade.
Hang on. So Victor Radley is out of the team and it's not a suspension?
That's right. Usually he's the one causing the injury. He's out 4 to 8 weeks with a fractured shoulder. So losing him in 30, or I think he's been playing in the back row, but him, Sam Walker, and Brandon Smith, that is a huge chunk of your almost your spine and your engine room of how the Roosters attack as well.
Yeah, they've been a nice team to watch this year, actually. I thought I fell out of love with the Roosters a few years ago because I thought they became quite a grubby team.
Yeah.
They seem to have cleaned a lot of that up and are just playing quite nice football. And I think I'd rate Sam Walker massively.
Same. He's a gun. I think they've cleaned it up. They've particularly cleaned this week because Jared Waerea-Hargreaves is serving a ban. And,
And it doesn't help when you've got Jared Waerea-Hargreaves and Victor Radley in your side.
That's right. You just need Hetherington on your side, and you've got the big three of giving away massive penalties for head highs.
And Kane Evans coming off the bench.
And Kane Evans. Oh, where's he? I'd kill to have him back. All right, let's wrap things up for the final Mad Monday episode for 2024. And what an eventful season it has been. It has been a roller coaster. It's something we need to really now, we've got a bye this week. The Warriors do. We can just watch some footy with no stakes on the line. Obviously, Hurley will be watching the Titans pretty closely still and still getting pretty revved up for them. But what we're going to do, Ben, I see if, actually, I'm not even going to lie. This was your idea, and I'm now pretending like I'm just pitching it to you. We should all get in one room and just talk out the season at some stage soon.
Yeah, I'd like to do our teams of the year.
Yeah,
can be from anywhere. If there's any Warriors in that side, it's probably Mitch Barnett, and that's it. But
I'll have Tane Tuapiki, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. So we'll get in the room and sort of wrap up the season now that the Warriors are done. I believe we are commentating the grand final.
That's right.
Sunday in October.
The first Sunday in October, which is bloody exciting. The Panthers taking on the Storm. I mean, the winner...
who knows?
Who knows?
It's wide open.
It could be anyone. It could still be the Knights or the Dragons or the Raiders. We just don't know.
Bulldogs, Dragons final.
What an absolute vintage slogfest that would be. I'm be massively into that, though. So we are doing the grand final. Keep an ear out. It'll likely be on Sky Sport 9, but we will be commentating that one, and we will, over the next couple of weeks, figure out a day to all get together in one room, myself, Mania, Di Henwood, and Ben Hurley as well, and just talk over the season. I love the idea of your favourite team of the year with all your best players and a few other things like that. So keep an eye out on socials for that. Otherwise, thanks heaps for listening to the Mad Monday podcast for another year, and we will be back ready to go next season as well. Thank you very much, Ben Hurley.
God bless SJ, and God bless you, Keezy.
Thanks, mate. And Jazz. And Jazz.
Okay.
Australia without rugby league. An Australia without rugby league is not Australia.